All right, good morning, everybody. This is the meeting of the Civic Events Board. It's 11:02 a.m. on Wednesday, June 28th. The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. On the consent agenda, if everybody's had a chance to review the previous minutes, consideration and approval of the May 25th, 2017 meeting minutes. If you've had a chance to review, could I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Regular agenda, presentation of monthly financial report and event calendar.
Mr. Don Maynard will speak on that.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Morning.
Good news for the Coliseum. The revenue side of it, as far as now, I'm giving you the current figure, which what you have is the fund balance as of the end of May. But the current figure is that the total revenue, all the revenue accounts, if you add them together, they exceed what our budget is. So that is probably one of the first times that's happened in quite a few years.
Great news.
There's a few accounts that are still just a little bit short, but the other accounts are making up for that tremendously. And I really expect by the end of September that those two accounts that are short will probably be in the black. So that's good news. The bad news is that at the convention center, we're a little behind. We've got a lot of money to make up, especially in rentals, by the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. But one of the big reasons for that is we were expecting, with the comeback of oil, a lot more meetings than what we normally have. And currently, we just have one company that comes in on a regular basis and has their safety meetings. We don't have the 300, 400, 500 people at a meeting that we used to, where they use the big room and several outlying rooms. Hopefully that will change in the next 18 months or so, but we budgeted for that to happen, but it did not. So that's one of the big reasons why the convention center is, as you can tell right now, it's sitting idle. Usually we'd have somebody in here with some type of a meeting, and that happened most of the time 2 to 3 days a week, every week. The river stage is still a little behind, but it's gaining ground, and I kind of feel like it maybe by the end of September we should be pretty close to fulfilling the revenue at the river stage. Other than that, expenses are running just about what we expect to. And also, we met Monday with city management on the budget. And so at this point in time, the budget for fiscal year 18 is now in the process of going through all the state mandated dates that they have to make reports to, on its way to being finalized in September at the last city council meeting. But it was a good meeting that we had. They just had a couple of questions about how we rated certain square footages. But other than that, they seemed to be pleased with the budget that we proposed for next year. Good. Do y'all have any questions?
I do. I'm assuming that we have not gotten the revenue report in for the concessions yet for May. Is that correct?
That's correct. Usually we get that check on the next to the last day or the last day of the month, which we should have it by Friday.
Okay, not a problem. I just was kind of excited to see that number. I figured we'd had a pretty big May, and so
Oh,
we,
with the 4 concerts, yes, sir.
so we would get,
But we should get that by the end of the month.
okay.
If you like, I can send you an email and let you know how much that is if you want to know.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay?
Okay,
Any other questions?
anybody else? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Mm-hmm.
Morning. If you'll look at your calendar, you'll see we're pretty much back up to average. There's 69 activities on the calendar, 35 here at the Convention Center, which we have 21 City of San Angelo meetings or activities out of that, and 6 Pecan Creek, 3 River Stage, 6 Paseo, 4 at the Indoor Arena, and 15 at the Coliseum. There's only 3 days that we have no activity, counting the 4th of July, which is a major cleanup day for us, so it kind of doesn't count. There's some large public events that you'll see up on top, starting with, we've got roller derby this coming Saturday, and then, of course, the July Pops concert on the 3rd at the River Stage. The West Texas Rehab is having their annual Silver Spur Ball next Friday, and the week after that, for the first time here, West Texas Tumbleweeds is having their Shop Hop. It's a quilting show. There's no fabric stores any longer here in San Angelo. So ladies that are still into that, the closest place, Austin, Abilene, San Antonio, they have to drive actually. So they're putting together, a lot of the outside vendors are coming together to do that show here for the first time. Knife and Gun Show is back. And of course, then we've got concert at the River Stage. Cody Johnson is on the 28th. Angelo Broadway Academy is back in July, 28, 29, and 30th. Lee Greenwood concert is here at the Convention Center on the 30th. And the 31st, most of y'all may have heard on the news, they're going to move the jury selection. It is rather large. Tom Green County is booking July 31st for that. They're doing that here in the ballroom with an anticipated very large crowd. So, any questions?
How many did you say that we had for the convention center? What was it?
Events, we've got 35 activity days,
35 activities.
and 21 are city
Okay.
meetings.
How's the future looking? Because I know he was talking about we might be behind on the convention center with our calendar. Do you think maybe we can get caught up?
Well, you knew last month, June's probably our lightest month of the year. July starts picking back up. August is kind of heavy. August and September both, so it'll pick back up. It'll
Sure
pick
it will.
back up.
You know,
So,
this is just kind of a personal thing for me. I'm kind of a boxing fan, and I know they had a boxing over at San Antonio Event Center, which is very similar to our convention center. I sure would like to see a boxing match. I think that'd bring a lot of people in here.
We've
Just
had
food
a
for
couple
thought.
of small clubs, you know, No Limit Boxing. They used to be pretty regular. And they had theirs at the Paseo. They've even had it at the Indoor Arena, which was a great crowd out there too. But they disband. I know Sal over at Golden Gloves, you know, they still have their regular place that they do that over at Southside. But
Well, they did something downtown around Father's Day, so you might reach out to them. Maybe they want to do something
yeah,
here.
we could do that.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
The Tom Green County District Court, what is that? That's just a big
It's a
convention.
jury selection pool. There's no space large enough. They were actually looking at the new SAPAC buildings. The seating still was not large. I believe we're setting up for about 1,000 people for that. So, and it will be all day long till they're done.
Ask a minor question. We're regulars at the farmers market. Would it be at all possible to put some trash cans down there?
Margie has. Yeah, they have trash cans.
The last two Saturday mornings, there's not been a trash can anywhere.
Oh, she calls when they're not there. I mean, we leave them and just go by and dump afterwards. But a lot of times the vendors may pull them close to where they're at,
they
and
might
you
be
don't
hidden,
see
I
them.
suppose, but-
Yeah, I believe we have.
It used to be last year, they had one, stuck right in the middle, and then they had another one on either end, and it was a little easier. But this year, we haven't seen one
Yeah,
anywhere.
they're over there because I know the staff goes. They're there Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and I believe staff goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and dumps and replaces bags. So Yeah.
I'll look closer.
Okay. They're gray, so they're kind of hard to see. Anything else?
Thank you, Lori.
All right.
All right, next item on the agenda, update of civic events, facilities, improvement projects.
Let me address that
Oh, I'm
last question real quick, if you
Yes,
don't mind.
my problem.
Okay.
My bad.
I'm sorry, did I step on you?
No, you did not.
Okay. I talked to Margie yesterday, and we're talking about maybe getting a dumpster down there for the whole season while the farmer's market's there. Because what's happening is, now that it's melon season, all of the guys are putting everything in there. Our guys can't even lift them out of there. You know, I almost have to take a forklift over there to empty the garbage cans. So we talked yesterday about putting a dumpster down there just for the season, so, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, for the ADA lifts, they are both functional now and just working just fine. And the biggest complaint on those had been that they move so slow. Well, there's a switch inside of there that's got a slow speed and a faster speed. So I had the guy change them over to the faster speed, and now those things run up and down. Not super fast, but they're faster than they were. When they got in there, they found that the one card that they thought was bad was not bad. So the quote on that was $3,200, and it's going to be at least $1,000 less than that because they didn't have to replace that card. So, but they're both working. The Coliseum doors on the back, the stuff is that we've got the PO. The stuff's been ordered. It's supposed to be here by the 7th, and then they anticipate starting work on those on the 10th. So that's of July. So that's coming real soon. The ceiling tiles are arriving as we speak, and so I've got the inmate crew from Tom Green County that's coming out. They're going to be there Monday and Wednesday and whatever days we need them past that to get that all done. That's about it.
Thank you, Steve.
So like he was saying, just piggybacking off of him, of course we have, we're finishing up our first phase of our civic event improvements that we needed for our facilities. And we're trying to get ready to gear up for our second phase of improvements. So one of the things, of course, that we'll need to discuss is getting out to the Coliseum and actually doing a walkthrough of that facility. I know we were able to take care of the convention center and the river stage, but we still need to set up a date for the Coliseum. I would like to do it in mid-July if possible, call a meeting for us to be able to meet out there and discuss that, because I'm basically trying to put this on a timeline for us to get this covered and go back to council by September to discuss other issues that we have with our facilities. If you look at it, of course, it says finish the civic events facility inspections in July, and then I would like to bring all those items back to our board and be able to discuss it in August for approval, and then also bring that to City Council by September. And that would give us last year we were able to get the funding on September 6th. And so that would make a year of us being able to finish everything that we did with the first set and go forth with everything. I know that we're saving quite a bit from what we did ask for in the first round, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to use those funds and put those towards some of the safety issues that we do have at some of our facilities, which brings up, of course, our next item, which would be the Foster Communications Coliseum inspection report. I had a meeting the other day with the mayor, and one of her biggest things that she was discussing was about safety at our venues. And so, of course, with the Coliseum being as old as it is, we are behind in a few things, well, many things out there. And just would like to make sure that we have a discussion about that and make sure we prioritize and put that on our list above some of the other needs that I know that we would like to be able to have at the Coliseum or at some of our venues, but I really feel that safety is very important for us in this time with what we see happening at other venues around the country and stuff like that. So
Before we move on with that, would y'all check y'all's calendar? July 13th works for me. I mean, we don't have to make a decision today, but get back with Sid. Check your calendars. You already shaking your head no?
Doesn't work for me.
Okay.
Also had a question regarding that calendar. Now, if you get city council approval, you're still gonna have to go back and do budget amendments, and that's gotta have 2 readings. So my fear is we're gonna run out of time in order to try to utilize fund balance before the end of this fiscal year.
I thought we were going to try to go to council in August. Is that not correct? Or we just don't have the time?
If we got the time, we can squeeze it in. It's all about squeezing it in. I mean, I think we can make probably the second council meeting in August. I mean, I'm fine with that. Sooner the better for me.
I would feel more comfortable doing that, but
I would like to line it up with our ticketing agreement too as well, and go to council all at the same time with everything. But if we would like to do it in August, and from that perspective, then I'm fine with it.
Don, are you gone all that week, or?
The 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Okay. You thinking the 5th, maybe?
Didn't we already have it on the calendar somewhere? I think I remember seeing that. No?
No.
It was just,
How about July the 5th? Anybody
I
out
won't be
that
in
week?
town.
The day after the 4th?
Yeah, that's
No.
I was
What
thinking.
about the 6th?
I won't be here that week.
Okay, I tell you what. Send
I'll
send
send out
Sid
an
like
email
two,
and-
like send an email out, give him a couple of dates, and we'll figure out one that's got it. But let's try to go sometime mid-month so that we can get you going, and maybe you can get to council in August.
Are we gonna go out there and then have a regular meeting?
Well, the way that's going to be considered a board meeting, us going out there and inspecting the facility and stuff. So we'll do everything out there, basically the inspection. We have to notify the public that we're going to do.
You could move, I mean, you could call a meeting. You could do a tour separately and then call a meeting, maybe move your August meeting or to earlier. So you could go to city council August 15th.
Well, we would still have. Can we still have our July meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and that's when we would discuss the findings.
Yeah, that'll
and
be
take it to
fine.
August.
My biggest thing is that I don't want to go with some of the needs for us. I want to make sure that we got everything, because
I
I don't
agree.
want to have to go back to the board and say, well, we need this for the river stage, or we would like to have this. So one of the biggest things that we have too as well is we're still going to have to get quotes and all of those things. So it's gonna be pushing us too as well around that time.
The sooner better. Maybe the 10th or 11th. Then, since you're going to be gone the week of the 3rd through the 8th. Y'all check your calendar, see if 10th or 11th works. Get back with Sid.
can you clarify that if council approves and it's in minutes and it is approved, are we okay at that point? Or do we have to wait for the other formalities to follow up? Does that make sense?
I'll get the answer on that.
Okay.
So you're worried that if we take it in September that we're going to lose time with the change of the fiscal year?
Right,
We
I
won't
know.
be able to
I
carry
know
it.
they do carryovers if you have an encumbrance prior to the end of the fiscal year. I get that, but we know how all that works. So I would like to have it in council minutes that it's approved or disapproved either way, because then budget office is going to have to process a budget amendment. That takes 2 readings. So I just don't want to push it too far out. But if we're okay with just council approval and we're good, then I don't think we have to rush as much. But I just want clarification on, you know what I mean?
Think about it.
If council's approval is enough to guarantee that process all the way through, then I think we'd probably be okay with that.
It would still have to be backed up with a budget amendment. I mean, we'd still have money left in the account that we could do some of the improvements, but the additional money would take the budget amendment, which takes 2 readings.
Right.
I don't know. I think if we can line it up to try to push it, speed up the schedule, I think we should. That way, we'll be fine either way.
One of the things we can also look at is, I guess for the inspections, we could use whatever the funding is that we're trying to get beforehand, push this all towards the Coliseum, and just bring the safety issues of the Coliseum. Since the Coliseum is doing pretty well for us, just saying, hey, we would like to use this funding for Coliseum-only stuff. And that way I don't have to bring all the other items by that time, at that time, and worry about the river stage and the convention center and all of those. because I want to make sure, like I said, I want to make sure that I hit and as detailed as possible whenever I go up there to ask for certain things for the river stage and the convention center. And I just don't know if I have enough time at this point. We may have enough time to be able to go to council and talk about the safety issues for the Coliseum and use that funding for that. You know what I mean?
You're saying use your savings from the other projects
Yes, sir.
to tackle the needs of the Coliseum.
Yes, sir.
And that way you could take that separately if you
Just
had
take
to.
that item separately to the.
If we had to. And you could always, at that presentation, mention that we're coming back to you for.
This is our number one.
Yeah.
I think it's ideal to show them the big picture of everything that needs to be done. Of course, you know how they work. They're going to start to prioritize things. Safety is the biggest priority in the issue, so then you can veer off to that. But I think they need to see the big picture, even if you don't have a lot of details. I mean, they need to see everything that you're working with. That's my opinion.
It's usually better. You could still do it in a two-step process where you go to them immediately just for the savings for the Coliseum, and then paint the whole picture, showing that we're going to come back with the details and future requests.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's meet at the Coliseum in July. Let's see what our needs are going to be, and then we'll move forward from there. Let's see what all we're going to have to present and decide the tactic we're going to go, whether we're going to go all in one or two-step process. Okay.
We're going to call 2 meetings for July, right?
That's correct.
One will be the visit out there, the other one will be
That is
the
correct.
regular July
That
meeting.
is correct.
Sir.
And at the regular July meeting, we should be able to summarize and move forward on what we discover when we're out there.
That is correct. We may not have all the bids in, but at least we'll know
Yeah,
what the needs
yeah.
are. Okay. Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe the 10th or 11th. Sid's going to be gone that first week. So if y'all could check your calendars for 10th or
11th is
11th
okay.
and let me know.
10th or 11 is good.
Let's go with 10th then,
Good work.
on Monday. What time is good for you, sir?
11 a.m.
You want to do a lunch meeting around 11 a.m.? Okay. No, we'll just meet at the Coliseum.
So this past Monday, we did have an inspection of the Foster Communications Coliseum, and so of course it's some of the findings are in your packet, and I have Fire Marshal Coleman able to speak on it on all the findings and stuff for it.
How are you, sir?
All right, how's it going? Okay, so I asked the staff to take a look at some of our facilities. I haven't been real happy with the way my office has been handling some of these things. In particular, my staff would show up at the rodeo while the rodeo's in session to do an inspection, causes disruption, and that's not what we aim to do. So we're trying to clean up quite a few things on our end, as well as look at our own facilities here at the city. So in doing so, I contacted Sid and asked if we could sit down and just kind of talk about what we need to do. One of those things was going back out to the Coliseum, because we know that there are some lingering issues that we need to handle and bring to your attention. So I'm going to talk about those things first. Hopefully, if you've got the packet, and I believe you do, you should see a written report with our information on it and some items that are numbered. I asked the inspector to prioritize some of the findings. So if you look and you see those numbers to the side, you'll see a 1, a 3, a 2, and so on. First and foremost, the goal of inspections, regardless of the findings, is kind of twofold. It's first prevention education, and second getting people out of buildings. So we're mostly concerned when we do an inspection that we can safely get our people out. And the first way we do that is through good doors that are marked well. So if you go into these pictures back here, there's a picture a little ways back that has a view of the Coliseum floor. And anywhere you sit inside the concourse area If you look out any of the exit ways, none of them are marked with exit signs at all. So if you are a visiting person from out of town, you've never been in there and you may not know how to get out, more than likely you're going to retreat to the door you came into. But by code, that's kind of a cardinal no-no. We want people to have other options. So that's an issue right there. And we have that throughout the Coliseum. If you go to the next page, you'll see there's like a Foster sign up there, and he kind of just drew in where an exit should be, and then you look at the floor, and we don't have any exits marked on the floor. So that's something that we really need to get addressed. Now, those need to be illuminated exits. So we have an issue with wayfinding. Also in the concourse area, we don't have exit signs, so you can be walking down the concourse and really not know where to go. So essentially, you should always have a minimum of 2 ways out. And if you walk into that concourse from the floor area, you should be able to look either direction and see an exit sign that leads you eventually to an exit. Our doors also need to be marked, and they need to have some panic hardware devices. Panic hardware is the push button style elongated mechanism that you see on the doors. And basically the code always says to take one motion to put a door in motion. It shouldn't take tools, special knowledge, keys, or any effort to do so. You should be able to push that door and go straight out. So that's going to be priority number 1. Number 2 is we have this sprinkler system, and I was reading the report. It said that it's had been yellow tagged since 2016. It's actually been yellow tagged a little bit longer. I know in 2014 it has yellow tags. And let me just tell you about what these tags mean. There's green, there's all sorts of colors. You go look at these things and it looks like a rainbow on them. But essentially you get a blue tag that's just an inspection tag, and that's all it is. Okay? And then you have 3 conditions, red, yellow, and green. Red means it's bad, it doesn't work, system doesn't operate, you have a problem. That means we usually have to do a fire watch, and you do not have the necessary fire protection in that building to properly work your sprinklers or fire alarm or what have you. Yellow is a conditional tag. That means we've got a problem, we still work, but we have some issues. And if we don't get them fixed, we're going to end up getting into that red category. Green means you're in operational good working condition. Okay, so we're always looking for that green tag condition. But you've got some issues here. This pump down here that you have a picture of, you can see it's corroded, it's rusted at the bottom, it's about to become detached. That is a big problem. That can cause a serious malfunction in your system. Some of these others, you've got painted sprinkler heads. If it's painted, it's more than likely not going to detect the heat. And by the way, they're heat activated devices. Trim rings or escutcheon plates. This right here is an escutcheon plate, this flat thing that's just held on by solder. So there's different types of heads and escutcheons. They're more just decorative items.
Mike, microphone.
If it gets hot right here, then that solder is going to come out and that head's going to drop down, and you're going to have water right here, nowhere else, only where the fire is. Okay, so we have some escutcheon rings and items like that. These things need to be fixed. So when he prioritized these items, he prioritized them in the direction of, let's get our wayfinding stuff taken care of first, and then maybe y'all can see who's doing this inspection on your sprinkler system, so we can get some estimates to figure out what it's going to take to get that fixed, and go from there. We also had Kermit from the rodeo out there, and who was the other gentleman with him? He had a new guy with him I didn't recognize.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but
It wasn't Justin, it was another guy. We talked to them about the rodeo, and we are working, I don't have it in this packet, this is just the inspections, but we're working on kind of a menued item per se, so that if you're a vendor, the rodeo can give that out to these people that have the mobile cooking and all the vendors, and we're going to provide a vendor sheet for the Coliseum as well. So if you have some indoor stuff going on, here's the rules. Let's try to get people to sign to those rules so that they're responsible for them. But we go out to these things, we find a litany of issues, cooking problems. They don't have the right kind of fire protection on those. Extension cords out the wazoo, unsecured propane bottles and what have you, the storage of gasoline for generators and stuff like that. All that stuff we need to we need to get a little bit tighter on so that we don't have a problem. When you see these carnivals and they have these little fires and stuff like that, it's really comes down to some carelessness that I think can be fixed initially, monitored, and I think if people just know, that would correct a lot of it, and then we can kind of get that going in advance, and then try to maybe come on their setup day instead of opening day, and get all these things taken care of. You know, I tell our staff all the time, we build a good building and then we put people in them. You know, so I think if we can get on top of some of these issues, we would feel a lot more comfortable, and we could get people out of our buildings, because that's the goal. So.
And I agree with you. I mean, we need to make that place safe. I was going to ask Steve, we're about to replace the Coliseum doors. Are they going to be compliant to what he just mentioned earlier, Steve?
I was with the Inspector Barry out there on Monday. We talked about the doors and the breakaways. So it's going to be the same thing that's on the front doors, which is what is needed to be out there. So it's just a panic bar that you just break away and you go out. So.
And while you're here, when you're pricing these things, there's two types of bars. They look exactly the same, but one costs much more than the other. Okay. Make sure that you're buying a bar that says Panic Hardware and not Fire Exit Hardware, because if you buy the Fire Exit Hardware, that's a rated piece of hardware that goes on a fire-rated door in an interior corridor. It's usually double the cost. I've seen many entities go out and spend a bunch of money unnecessarily because they're not buying the right thing. So we don't have to have any rating on the exterior door. They go right to the outside. There's no protection right there per se.
No, I do appreciate you meeting with us and giving us a heads up on these things. Of course, it's a lot of information, but we are certainly going to meet and get an action plan and get working on that and take some of those things.
We are working on two documents. First is kind of just a checklist, if you will, for these vendors. And then we're going to have more of a packet style document that has these things, maybe some pictures, examples, and more descriptive details. And that way they'd have an information packet, and then they'd have that checklist that they could sign to. And I think that would be better for the city, just in case something happens, you know, if you want to recoup some cost or whatever, that vendor's, you know, attested and signed to that. And I think it just gives us a little bit more protection.
Anybody have any questions for the fire marshal?
No, I just wanted to thank Ross and commend you for you and your staff do a great job. I know your hands are tied quite a bit, so you do a great job.
We're always the bad guy. So
well, you do a great job with the resources that you're given, so I commend you and your
Appreciate
staff for that.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It says over here that the fixed seating does not have a sprinkler system.
Yeah, so
So does that mean that inside the Coliseum, nowhere?
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about that. So basically, any assembly occupancy over an occupant load of 100 is supposed to be 100% fully sprinklered. Technically, the entire seating area should have a sprinkler system in it. Okay, all these new venues coming up, Verizon Wireless, AT&T, and all these places are fully sprinklered. This one's not. I've heard, it was you know, wasn't required when it was built. As far as I can tell, back in 1960, the building code that was adopted, which was the Southern Standard, did require sprinklers. They weren't put in. We have what we call a fire watch fee. I've talked to him about that. This is one of those deals where we should be in the building with the police, and you could pass that on to the person renting the facility. But that way we can help get the people out of there. But yeah, right now the concourse is the only thing sprinkler. This is the same thing at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio. You see a lot of coliseums like that. I think they were built that way because there was a lot of rodeo activity done in these buildings, and they just didn't see a need to have the rodeo floor with sprinklers in them at the time. But I can't see that it would be a very lofty endeavor to get sprinklers in there. It'd be very expensive at this rate.
So we're not required by city code to bring it up to standard?
You are. What I'm
Is
trying
that
to
not a
offer
liability for the city? Is that not a liability for the city?
unless we do the fire watch. The fire watch is
That's
kind of the
okay.
exception to that rule. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But these are things that we have to work on.
So with the events that we'll be having coming up, we're basically going to be able to, get with the promoters and let them know, hey, with some of the concerts and stuff like that, they'll be responsible for getting a fire watch in there, and they'll be able to come to you all's office and handle that with them.
Karen, like right now, we hire police for security. We're now going to start hiring somebody from the fire marshal's office for fire watch, and they'll be there.
I mean, that can become a conversation or a discussion of who's actually in charge of that bill, since that's something, when you rent out the facility, if the facility isn't up to code, it could fall back on us. Somebody could argue that. That could be an argument from a promoter.
Fire watch.
$65 an hour with a 2-hour minimum.
Is this for every event or a certain amount of people?
Fire watches, I'm sorry, I can't remember to do this. When you have 250 people or more, that's what triggers the fire watch.
Is that something we can just write into the rental agreement?
Yes, but now when you look at it like that, that's basically any event that's going to be at the Coliseum. So it's one of the, again, it's just an issue that we would have to discuss with every promoter or anybody that wanted to rent that facility. I mean, it's just an extra additional costs and stuff. Safety, of course, definitely safety, but that can come down to who actually should be paying for that. Since why am I required to pay for that when I'm renting your facility and your facility doesn't have the proper needs when I rent it?
I do know that, like at the Freeman Coliseum, that's passed on to the promoter of the show or whatever, whoever's going to do that concert or whatever. So
This is the thing. We're not going to lose a show over probably what's going to amount to about $200 worth of cost. I mean, we've got.
The question should be, well, what time do they have to be there? Because, I mean, it's a 2-hour minimum, but if they have to be there for the time somebody actually arrives in the building, then that bill could be pretty hefty.
Gun show goes on all day.
Yeah, but that may not be 250 people.
Oh, at the knife and gun?
The fire marshal's office, because I bring up San Antonio because I used to work there. They're there for a lot of events, and it just depends on what it is. But they are there for the gun shows, the tattoo shows, the car shows. I mean, you name it, they're there all the time. The city of San Antonio has the contract to do the same thing at the AT&T Center, so it's fairly common. This is actually better in my mind because at those events, they're paying the inspectors directly. Here, this gets paid to the city. So I think that's actually.
Any other questions for the fire marshal?
Thank you.
I appreciate your hard work. Thank you, sir.
I did want to address that number one with the fire exits and everything. We did the inspection on Monday, and of course, we've already said that the building is really old. So when they built the building, they didn't put the fire exit signs or the exit signs where they're visible. I mean, for everything that needs to be. So in the new part, what they did, those are okay up there. So what I've done is I've started the ball rolling already to get an electrician out there, and we're going to meet with Inspector Barry, and he's going to show us exactly where they have to be to meet code, and then we're going to do an estimate on that, and then we're going to come back and say, well, this is what it's going to cost.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. All right. Well, we've got a lot of information to absorb, so let's take a look at it and build an action plan.
And if possible, whenever we do our inspection, if we can have Inspector Barry come out there with us and, actually show you all certain things too as well. That way it could.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great.
But I mean, this is something that, could be sticky on a lot of the events that we do have and stuff. I don't think you would have to worry about most of the major concerts or events like that. I think they would understand. I'm really looking towards the ones that rent out the Gun and Knife, Gun and Blade, and Saba, or Arts and Crafts show. I mean, they could have many vendors out there as well. So it's just one of those things that we're definitely going to have to take into consideration and look at it from all angles as well. Because once you start adding, even with this, what he was discussing, then, a major event, you could possibly have also, ones that directing traffic and stuff, officers that are needed out there for that too. And, we start tacking on more and more expenses onto the promoter. The promoter's that's when they start looking at Abilene and other places and what do they have to offer. You don't want to, of course, we don't want to lose anybody over $500, but promoters can be like that,
I don't think it's a good idea at all to add an extra cost, especially when it's our fault.
I guess my question would be, and I'm probably ignorant to this, but when a promoter comes in, they're required to have their own insurance.
Yes, sir.
I cannot see an insurance policy that would be approved without fire submission and those things anyway. So it may be something their insurance provider is going to require them to have as well. Are they just checking the box that it's there and they're not really aware that it's not? So I agree. I don't want to add on more cost, but at the same time, that's a lot cheaper than it is for millions of dollars of lawsuit. But
How much is a sprinkler system?
I have no idea on that part of it. I'm quite sure it's very expensive, though. Very expensive. Yes, I would agree.
I'm guessing a
More than
$250,000,
that, probably quarter.
$300,000.
Well,
That's an
let's follow the fire marshal's suggestions. Let's try to get the things that he's pointed out up to code. I mean, we know that we've got to do something, but we're probably gonna have to progress, and we can't do everything at once. But let's get the things that he's pointed out. Let's get those things bidded out. Let's get an action plan. I think the guy is certainly working with us, trying to help us out, make sure that we get the Coliseum in compliance. So let's work with that. We will have to address it eventually, and of course we'll move there. But let's just move forward with the items that he's given us today. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that? Okay. We need to backtrack one. I apologize. We missed the review of civic events bylaws and recommending any amendments. I know that.
Yeah, so we did get the approval of the ordinance change for us for civic events, and now I need to go ahead and get the bylaws as well changed. So I would like, I just need to have them approve for the changes for the bylaws. It would be the same approvals that we've.
So my understanding is we've already voted on the motion to approve the bylaws that we reviewed last time, but it had to go to council.
Well, some of the things that were changed in the ordinance aren't necessarily the same thing as what. It wasn't everything you're looking at, was it?
Yes, for the most part it was. So it was the age of from 21 to 18. It was also for the quorum as well.
Part about missing meetings?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they had everything we talked about.
Is there any difference in what
No,
the
sir.
board's recommended versus what was changed
No,
in the
sir.
ordinance? Then I
No,
guess
sir.
we don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about. Just need to be able to. I'm gonna bring that to council soon as well, and that goes on consent. Correct.
I thought we already took those to council.
We took the ordinance.
Yeah. We took the ordinance to council already, but my recollection was there was some changes that had to be made in the ordinance, but that didn't include all the recommendations that the board had.
But there was some items that we couldn't change in the bylaws without changing the ordinance first.
Yes.
Now we've changed the ordinance. Now we can go ahead and move forward with the bylaws that we had agreed
I
on.
think that's where we're at.
Yes,
We're at.
that's where we're at.
But did the board already make a recommendation to change?
For the bylaws, yes.
We have voted and made recommendations on the bylaws. I just didn't know if we should have waited until after the ordinance, or do we need to go ahead and vote on it again? Nothing has changed since the last vote that we've made on the bylaws.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what action needs to be taken unless the board wants to confirm what recommendations.
I
they'd
think you
like
can
to
take
make.
the previous meeting minutes and when we did vote for it and take that, and that should be enough to satisfy council.
Perhaps if that covers everything, because, okay, so the ordinance changed that talks about the Civic Events Advisory Board, but there are separate bylaws that do need to be
Yes, sir.
approved
Yes,
by
sir. And so
council based on the board's recommendation. Yeah, the bylaws, whatever you want to change in the bylaws does have to go back to council on consent agenda likely.
That is correct, but do we need
To be
another vote on
approved.
that? I mean, or can we go back to the minutes where we did vote for the changes?
I mean,
I don't mind making another motion, we can make
Yeah.
another motion. I mean, it's gonna be the same thing, nothing's changed.
I don't know what we need to do.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We know we've already voted on them. We know that we have the agenda minutes for that meeting. There have been no other changes. Is anybody opposed making another motion and voting as approved by those minutes?
To move forward with the,
To move
Bylaw
forward so that we
changes.
can go ahead and take in case,
yeah.
I was gonna say, next meeting, if you could just provide us a copy of the redone
Let's just do
bylaws,
that.
and we'll just acknowledge that they exist.
Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Let's table it and let's bring it
Okay,
back.
let's do that. All right, my friend. I think that's it. Consideration of any future agenda items?
The only things that, like I said, that we need to get situated is going to the Coliseum, actually doing that inspection of that facility. Other than that, we are moving forward with the ticketing agreement too as well. That should be coming up in the next few weeks, where the RFP will be out there, and then we'll be bringing it back to the committee and going forth with that too as well.
Okay. One of the things I'd like to see, and I know we've talked about it, and I think we alluded to it at the ZZ Top concert. We had some issues where concessions were set up, blocking people. I'm sure that maybe that's a fire thing as well. But maybe speaking with Carlos, whether or not he can make an action plan based on attendance, on how he's going to set up and where he's going to set up. Would that be a possibility of getting him in here so we can speak to him?
Yes, definitely. My thoughts on that was I was going to go ahead and whatever the amount of the attendance is for each event, I was going to basically have, a sheet that says, hey, this is where we need to be set up at. This is who we need in place or where we need things in place at. I feel that we should probably let him know where we would like for him to set up instead of letting him let us know where he would like for us, where he's going to set up at.
I agree. Instead of the tail wagging the dog. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I don't know if y'all saw the
Yeah,
backlog
right
down there
inside
by
the front
the
door.
concourse. That's just, to me, it really
Get
bothered
in
me
or
because I
out.
was down there trying to get in and out. We were just having to go all the way against the wall trying to get through. So that's something that needs to be addressed. I mean, I think.
And that's something that when we go out there for the Coliseum inspection, that I would like for us to be able to discuss and look at too as well, for that.
And same thing for the river stage. I'm sure if there's a certain attendance, I'm sure you're going to want to have more than one concession. And I think we talked about maybe doing some electrical changes out there.
Yes, sir.
To comply with that.
Yes, sir.
So if we could address those items, I'd appreciate it.
We'll do.
Anything else?
Well, also, in the future, we do need to be able to discuss, I guess, all of our policies too as well. We do need to bring those up.
Yes, we do.
Well, and we'll have to review our fees as well and look at those.
Review what? The rental rates or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because with the new control system that's in there, that's something that we could possibly speak about the rental of the facility and how much usage they're using on heat or a cold. That's something that we definitely need to look at. Right now, we used to charge. Ms. Lori would know a lot more on this, but we used to charge about $75 an hour, for let's say Saba to when we turn on that the units and stuff. But we need to look at it and find out how much it's actually costing us, and then go forth with that too as well.
Yeah, and when you do that, Lori, I mean, you don't have to answer it now, but see how we compare to similar cities, maybe Midland and Abilene or something like that, please.
That brought up something in my mind as a future discussion item maybe, but there's a few groups that were dislocated from the auditorium project, which the auditorium's about to be ready. We need to talk about
Yes, so Saba, that's another thing for, in our next meeting, Saba would like to have a discussion with you all on the rental of the Coliseum as well. Of course, they've been using the Coliseum since the auditorium was down. With the auditorium going back online, they would like to possibly discuss the charges of the Coliseum, for them if they do not want to use the auditorium. So something that would have to require you all to speak on first and vote on, and then something that has to go to council.
They're looking maybe like for a long-term agreement.
Some type of agreement.
Yeah, invite them over.
We'll do. That'll happen at the next.
To Carl's point, can we get clarification on who's actually going to maintain the auditorium? Is it, we still looking at, I don't know if that needs to be an agenda item, but I'm curious who's actually going to maintain that.
You want to have a discussion item on that? We've met recently with SAPAC on that. Basically, SAPAC is covering the maintenance. If there's extra work that they've got to get our help with, they'll be charged in full for that.
But janitorial services, like all of those things that
They're
are
taking care of all that.
That's my biggest issue is, for staffing and stuff, for, things. Of course, we're supposed to be, there's dependent on us to be able to help them out. But with the way our calendar is on some of these events, it's tough for us to be able to give any type of assistance to them with how busy our calendar is.
That was my question. I just didn't know how much they were going to try to utilize Steve and his group for that stuff. But thank you.
Sounds like we've got lots of things to talk about.
Yeah.
We might need to work on the timing of some of those because some are more important than others.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussions? All right. Do I get a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? We're out of here.